Hi everybody, good afternoon and welcome to the final innovation stage session of the first day of iTech 2025. It's been a wonderful day. It's great to see so many of you still here and I look forward to seeing you all back in the morning. For those that I haven't met yet, my name is Chantal. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at TSA, and in today's session we're going to talk to you in a little bit of detail about our Sector Risk and Innovation Group. Over the course of today, you might have heard it referenced a few times, SIRIG, Sector Risk and Innovation Group. We're going to unpick that a little bit today and give you a little bit of a detailed update as to what some of those programs are doing. The format of the session, I'm going to give you a little bit of background and then I'm going to introduce some of our speakers who are going to give you some of the detail on the work programs that they've been standing up on behalf and in collaboration with TSA, and then we'll have a bit of a question and answer session at the end. There'll be a bit of a roaming mic, so have a think if you've got any questions that you might want to put to the panel. So I'm joined today by David, Stuart and Paul, who are all suppliers in the sector, all competitors, I don't know if I can use that term. Friends. And that's the beauty of the Sector Risk and Innovation Groups, is that we're bringing together friends who work in other organisations to work together for the greater good of the sector. We've also got Tracy who's joining us from Northern Housing Consortium, and she's going to be able to demonstrate to you how what we do within the Sector Risk and Innovation Groups can be brought to life in an organisation. And then we've also got our in-house expert Charlotte, who's been driving a lot of the innovation groups internally within TSA. I'll just give us a second for a few guys to sit down. So just to give you a little bit of background, some of you might know this, so if I'm telling you things that you already know, I apologise. But just to give you a little bit of background as to what the Sector Risk and Innovation Group is and what it does. So to give you an understanding of our structure, TSA is a not-for-profit. We are a membership organisation at our core. We offer standards and education, consultancy, membership, and lots of other things in between. Alongside us, we have Tech Quality. That is our assurance process. So we will go out, we have a UCAS accredited program, and we will assure the quality of services and products out there in technology-enabled care. Within that, we then have what feeds into our senior management team meeting and our SFAC, which you might have heard mentioned a few times on plenary. That is our forward-looking group that is looking at where will technology-enabled care be in the future. What we're talking about today is our Sector Risk and Innovation Group. So this is our ability as an organisation to stand up and respond to the sector's needs right now. Now, the information that comes into that comes in through multiple channels. One of the key channels that we utilise is our risk survey. So if anybody has ever responded to TSA's risk survey, you are contributing to helping us to prioritise where we should be looking as an organisation and what support we should be putting out there. This was refreshed in 2024, and this is how we are currently now functioning as an organisation. The beauty of this is that we're able to absorb, understand, prioritise and provide responsive support to what the sector needs. We're then able to layer that with a level of standardisation and education through our quality standards framework. As I mentioned before, all of our members of the Sector Risk and Innovation Groups leave badges at the door, so it's not about the organisations, it's not about branding, it's not about sponsorship, it's about the understanding of the sector and the experiences and skills and expertise that we can bring to the table to deliver something for the wider sector. In terms of who the Sector Risk and Innovation Group are, so they're chaired by our Chief Exec, Alison Scurfield, and we've got, as you can see here, representatives from across the sector. This is a core team, but I think it's fair to say, and they will probably say themselves, and as you'll see in their slides, they bring in own experts that they know or we've got within our reserves panel as part of the Sector Risk and Innovation Group to bring together the right people to deliver the change that we need within the sector. To give you a little bit of insight, so we have the risk and innovation survey that we produce, and we also have information that we'll receive from our membership. We will have consultancy projects, and all of that comes together as intelligence for what does the sector need. And when we went through those, we defined really 4 key categories. The ADAS Commission that many of you will have heard about earlier, the packed session in here on proactive and preventative care, that sits within that top bucket. What we're talking about here this afternoon is around digital resilience and seamless operation. So 4 of the top 10 risks that came out of our survey were in this topic area, and they're the work streams that we're going to talk through with you today. So I'm going to hand over now to our first... Oh, sorry. Lost the slide. I'm going to hand over now to our first speaker, David, who's going to give you a little bit of detail of the project that he's been working on and where they've reached and what point they're at. If you do have any questions, please note them down, and we will be coming round at the end for any questions that you might have.
So hi, my name's David Hammond. I'm the Chief Executive of ChipTech. And I was really delighted to take part and help the TSA with the challenges that we've got from going from analog over to digital. As Chantal said, there was some different sort of like groups that were identified, and I was very lucky to be chosen for the one for resilience of services and systems. So firstly, before I go into the project, and it's really important. It's not just me doing this work and the people on the team here. We've actually gone out to industry, and there's a number of people that put their name forward to come and help us with the challenges that we have. So I'm very, very lucky to have an incredibly experienced team with hundreds of years worth of experience in this industry. So Richard Bailey, Richard Hosier, Max Stevens, Julian Edge, Ian Nicholson, and Beck Simmons. We've got people from connectivity, product, housing, service provision, and they all sit on a group and help us. And just to give you a feel of the work that I'm going to take you through, the commitment that they're putting over to us, just as a feel, we're on weekly sprint groups at the moment, and the meetings are lasting over an hour, so there's a tremendous amount of work that people are doing currently for our industry that I'm grateful for. So what we've done, what I was asked to do is to take a deep dive and look at all of the risks that we've currently got within the industry over different sections. So within that, we've got product, we've got telecare, we've got cellular, we've got Wi-Fi and Ethernet, we have monitoring, and we have middleware. And what we've basically done as a group is that we've come together, split all of these out, subject matter experts, but challenged by the wider team as well. And we've essentially gone out and we've done a complete full risk assessment end to end. And to give you a bit of a feel for that, from those risks, we've come up with over 300 risks that's been identified. Now please don't think that's risks that we've got that don't have any form of mitigation already in place. This is about risks that we've got in an industry. And is everybody aware of the current mitigation? Is it fit for purpose? Do we need to go back and go and look at it with our ultimate goal of making sure the systems we put in place ultimately are going to be there to help people in their time of need and with an eye to the future? The 300 risks that we've identified now, essentially what we've done, we've scored each of these different risks, and that's been quite a big exercise to do. And then from that, we've basically, from that risk assessment, which we're going to deal with, all 300 of them, but we're starting with the ones that we deem as critical. These critical risks, we call it the red list, but these critical risks we'll get through with the plan. What we're going to do, essentially, is create documentation that says, that's the current risk. We're putting it into proper layman's terms, so it's not going to be acronym hell. It's going to be diagrams, easy to use, so people can fully understand them in line with the work that they actually do. But then we provide mitigation options. That could be, here's the standard that's already there, please refer to it. It could be, that standard's there, but it's not quite right for digital, and therefore you might want to consider this, and you might want to consider this within your technology enablements. But then we've also said, and equally on your service provision, these are the things that you need to look at as well, or we'd recommend you to look at. So there's a big piece of work. Please, within your mind's eye, please think of 300 risks there, separate documentation with that full risk assessment and resilience piece. But ultimately, our plan with this is to provide that documentation and guidance, and that's going to be coming out into membership in all different areas to help people with their service provision, and ultimately, hopefully, go over to the QSF as well to help them. We often get asked about governance. How do we make sure this is fair? How do we make sure that everything has been captured? But there is governance in place. Essentially, the way that we're working within a group, we all challenge each other, and there's a little bit of competition already within our group. We challenge each other. That goes over into the TSA. They take a look at it and provide some feedback back. From there, if there's no changes, that then goes back out into the wider industry group. That's going to be happening soon within the first red list. That comes back then over to the panel. If there's changes or considerations that we need to make, fine, we'll go and do that, and we do the cycle again. But ultimately, we will get to an ending point with that, and then when we do that, it goes over to Alan and the TSA, and then that gets published. So that's the work that we're doing. Is a big piece of work. And that's it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Fantastic. So I'm going to hand over to Stuart in a second. We do now have the iPad, so if you've got any questions and you want to put them through, then please do. I think the biggest takeaway centrally that we've taken from TSA, from a TSA perspective about all of that work, was just how dedicated that team's been, because it has been a lot of work to do that, but also the complexity and the intricacies of all of that. And I think one of the big takeaway that I took from seeing all of those risks there is that actually it starts to become manageable, because you can see it, and there's tangible, hands-on, on the ground guidance, tools, support, documentation. And that's what I think we should be really proud of when it comes to that specific piece of work. But I will hand over to Stuart, who will be able to talk you through, very similarly, the amazing work that him and his team have been doing as well.
Thank you. Hello. So following on from David's resilience, we're looking at end-to-end specific cyber risks. So again, I'd like to say it's a bit of a dry subject. We're hopefully going to bring it to life a bit and understand it. So if you walk around here today, you will see digital transformation introduces some amazing opportunities. I've walked around and experienced that. However, it does come with some new and significant challenges, and essentially multiple points of failure. What we'll be doing was been looking at the digital risks that introduces. We understand analog risks. Nobody hacks a fax. Yep, that's a fact. And actually, David's already explained up to 300 digital resilience risks. What I want to do is take that one step further and analyze that, looking at cyber. So, quick hands up session. Who here has digital or cyber risks in their risk register? Anyone? Excellent, that's what I like to see. If you haven't, no shame, but you should. And the reason is, it's the number one risk, be it cyber attacks, ransomware, DDoS, all these things can impact the end-to-end resilience of the technology we're looking to provide. So I'm working with some really skilled people throughout our industry. Some of them are sitting here today. There we are. And again, following on from David's piece of work, we'll be looking at these risks. So some of the things we're looking to do is identify. So we'll be identifying the risks. How will we be doing that? Well, like I said, if anyone was sitting through the last around our futures and AI, actually, I may be using AI to introduce and understand, working with specialists from our industry, some of the key risks that targets. And again, second part to that is mitigate. So how are we going to mitigate and address these risks? Well, simply, we're going to offer technical guidance, best practices, working with specialists throughout the industry, and raise those standards. So we've been working with QSF, some of the tech team, and where we can foster a culture of cybersecurity and embed that, so these sit within our QSF frameworks, is one of the ways that we will just address these challenges. Again, I don't want you to think about this as not just for IT teams or security experts. A thing that's clear is collaboration, education, and innovation are some of our strongest defences around this. So again, some of the outcomes from this, we talked about managing. I hope you never experience a cyber incident. I don't want you to put your hand up if you have. But inevitably, others have and will. I think we thought that cyber criminals wouldn't exploit the health industry. Sadly, we now know this not to be true. And part of the ESRIG program, I think my biggest fear is when we're looking at risks over here, we suddenly get caught by something over there. And the biggest impact for that is, it's not only our industry, it's more importantly our users that can be impacted by this. So the second part to this program is managing it. Of course, for those of you in the QSF program, and for QSF, Quality Standards Framework, the TSA standard, we have a level of managing documentation, crisis management. What we're looking to introduce through that into our BCPs, our cyber incidents. So again, a little bit of a poll. If I look for your BCP, strike fear into people's hearts now, anyone who works in a control centre, what do you have there? No doubt from COVID, we're really mature and working from home. Yeah, we've all got that. Yeah, we've done that. If you have an incident, what do you do? We move to DR. What about cyber? It takes out everything. Have we got a plan for that? So fine if that's, I don't have an answer. What we're looking to provide are those answers. So when you're having that risk, we'll provide you with that guidance, information, that RACI model, so we can support you, guide you through it, and get back to continuous uptime of services. That's it. That's in a nutshell what we're trying to achieve. Look out for further guidance, templates, and information on a subject that I hope will be embedded soon in your organisation. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Fantastic. So I think we've seen again there that ability for us to absorb and understand, prioritise, respond with support at the time, but then also layer that with quality standards framework, assurance process and education as well. So fantastic, and also lots of friends on that slide as well. That was really nice to see. Lots of organisations that aren't the same organisation coming together, leaving the badge at the door and delivering something for the greater good of the sector. So I'm going to hand over to Paul now, who's going to talk you through a project that's in the sort of later stages in terms of delivery. Both himself and Charlotte are actually going to stick around at the end of the session. So if you've got any specific questions in terms of your organisation and the work that they're going to present, then please feel free to come and find them at the end. And they're very willing to have a chat with you. But for now, I'll hand over.
Thank you very much. Hello everyone, I'm Paul Sheed, Managing Director of Innovation UK, and we provide the UMO monitoring platform. So I'm involved in this. I'm chairing a group on interoperability. Does anybody else have a problem with having to wear 3 pairs of glasses to do things at distance and close up? So forgive me as I do this. Really the objective of this interoperability group is the need for seamless operation. The attention is to guide service providers, people who commission and then deploy services for the tech industry, give them more effective and reliable methods to do so. So there are several deliverables in this group. The first is to publish a current interoperability standard. So I'm just going to first of all mention all of these companies who've been very much involved in this whole process. So again, it's very nice to see competitors come together and actually share information and constructively talk about how we handle interoperability. And all of those have contributed to previous work in the SIG 10, I think originally, Special Interest Group 10. And that formed the foundation of the interoperability work that we do now. So, what are we talking about interoperability? We're actually right now, the scope is interoperability of devices through to a monitoring center. So this is not interoperability of sensors to a hub in the home. It's not currently preventative or proactive type services and devices. It's all focused on alarm handling and it's all focused on device to ARC. So the very first deliverable was to publish some information to guide people about, well, what's actually been tested, what's shown to work from a device through to the different monitoring centres that are available. And that's been published on the website. It was published on the 31st of October last year. And if you look there, basically, and this is where I need my other glasses, basically you can go to the resources section of the Digital Shift on the TSA website and click there and you will find an interoperability matrix page. So there's a little snapshot of the page on the right, and then when you click to download, you'll be able to view equipment from different suppliers, alarm receiving software from different suppliers, and show the status of testing that's gone on between them, with some verification where the TSA have contacted the Alarm Monitoring Centre to say, is this actually working? Is it all as it's stated by the manufacturers? So there's some verification going on there too. We've also provided definitions of interoperability and integration, and there is a clear process. There is basically an email address listed where manufacturers can add their products to this matrix with that verification through the TSA. So one of the things that we need to do is to keep that updated, and at the moment we're updating that as a minimum every 3 months with the latest information, but right now with the various activities going on, that will be as fast as monthly as and when we get requests from other suppliers to add their products to the list. And next planned steps, we need to identify any further guidance or clarification. So that group of manufacturers that was shown earlier are meeting in a few weeks' time to talk about what else is now needed now that this interoperability matrix is now published. And there are things already being put forward about, particularly around scheme equipment, group living equipment, because some of the standards that exist don't cover making outbound calls to schemes, for example. So that kind of thing needs to be clarified and agreed so that everybody does it the same way and uses the protocols in the correct way. And we'll also be looking at how we feed back information to the standards committees that write these interoperable protocols. There are 2 of them. There's a British Standards Committee, and there's also an international committee that looks after what was the SCAPE protocol, EN 50134 Part 9, if anybody's interested. You're not, but there's 2 standards, that one, and BS 8521 Part 2. They're the 2 key standards in this space. And the feedback loop will be through sitting on those committees, TSA representation, to feed back these issues to those groups so that they develop the standards properly and cover the missing functionality that I've mentioned. And finally, there'll be a consultation to see, well, how far do we take this? At the moment, this is just device to ARC. Do we need other standards and agreements so that we can look at some of the proactive and preventative type services and devices? Should they still involve an ARC? All to be debated and discussed, and the group is planning to take that forward in the next session. I think that's me done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Brilliant. So I think my biggest takeaway from that is, again, you've got a really useful tool there to utilise in your organisation so that you can just sense check that interoperability between one system and another. And it does open lots of questions about what do we do with that next and how does it evolve. What we added to the website was a few boxes of information from you as you're downloading the Excel and the interoperability matrix itself. That enables us to let you know when it's up to date, when it's changed, and when there's been a reiteration of it. So when you are going to use it to make any decisions, just bearing in mind that it is very much live and we are updating it as and when. So always worth coming back to the TSA website, re-downloading it if you're going to be using it for any of those big decisions that you're going to be making internally. I'd now like to hand over to Tracy from the Northern Housing Consortium, and she's going to talk through with us a little bit about how she's actually utilised that matrix and how it's become part of their day-to-day.
Thank you. Hi, good to see you all. I don't think I am going to talk through how you use the matrix. I think I'm going to sort of talk about why this is important from a housing perspective. Let's move that on. The session's called Driving Digital Success, and I think it's sort of worth remembering because it's all very technical, isn't it? But at the end of the day, digital success isn't the goal in itself, is it? I mean, it's just a means to the goal. The goal is about helping people to live independently in a place that they call home. It's about living well with meaning, and tech is the route to get us there. And I think it's really exciting that with the level of digital innovation that we're seeing, we can do that if we're prepared to be brave and bold and to embrace the innovation. So I want to use my time here to have a think about what are the hurdles in digital innovation and what are the practical solutions for digital transformation. How can we help you to provide homes for life? So just a word on Northern Housing Consortium. I didn't realise there was a photograph of me on that slide. We are a membership body for social housing providers. What I wanted to mention about what we do is our commercial arm, which is rebranded today and is over on stand 12 as NHC Procurement. So although we are the Northern Housing Consortium, we actually have a national membership that we work with on our procurement. So, what are the hurdles? Well, I think everybody understands and recognises the importance of home in terms of it being the absolute foundation for a healthy, well-lived life. The first hurdle I'd suggest is that we aren't building enough homes. We know that. House building hasn't kept pace with demographic changes, so we've seen an increase in the number of households because of changing family structures, and of course we've got an ageing population, and we just aren't building enough homes to keep pace. Now, we've got really ambitious house building targets with the new Labour government. They've committed to building 1.5 million homes by the end of the first Parliament. And they've absolutely nailed their colours to the mast with that. And it is an ambition that, of course, we support. However, I think that there is a danger that the focus is so much on the numbers that what we build is slipping down the agenda. And certainly accessibility of homes is not something that is being talked about in the way that it once was. Accessibility used to be something that government was really focused on through the Lifetime Homes agenda, and then in England that became wrapped up in the accessibility standards within the building regulations. And that there have been various ongoing discussions on raising standards and consultations and minimum standards of accessibility and adaptability for all new homes. But nothing has actually happened. And the reality is that at the time of the last government consultation, only 10% of new homes in England were actually built to these standards. So we aren't building enough homes, we aren't building the type of homes that we need, and the reality is that 80% of the homes that we will have in 2050 are already here, we've already built them. So the only way that we are going to get ahead of the challenges that we have is by having a long-term plan, and we need a more joined-up approach to our nation's housing, health and care needs, and that means greater collaboration between the sectors. Now, Labour have come in and talked a lot about a one government approach and about a desire to break down silos and to work across government departments and to be more holistic in their approach to governing, and that's something that I think we need to hold their feet to the fire on. We need colleagues in the Department of Health and Social Care to work with colleagues in the Ministry for Housing and Communities and Local Government. Is that out of the question? Well, we have seen in the last week with the abolition of NHS England that the government are prepared to take very bold steps if they believe that it will break down bureaucracy and if they believe that it will create efficiencies and better outcomes for people. So perhaps cross-department and cross-sector working isn't an impossible dream after all. And then I think the other really important factor that can help support this collaboration is working at a more local level, and certainly across the north we are seeing the spread of devolution and the mayoral combined authority model, which creates loads of opportunities for us to work together so that we can start to address these issues. So I think by looking at housing, health and care at a more localised level, we can form the partnerships and we can get the collaboration that we need so that we can finally start to make progress. And we can think a bit wider. So it's not just about the homes, but about place and about what our places need to provide. So we know good work is already happening in this area, but we need to build on it and we need to continue it. So massive challenge, massive opportunity. We've got to increase aspirations again around the standards of the new homes that we build. And we've got to get the basics right. Everybody has the right to live in a safe, warm, decent home that is affordable to them in a place that they feel proud to live in, and that's very much at the heart of the consortium's work. So I've said we're not building enough homes and we're not focusing sufficiently on the accessibility of our new build homes, and we need to change all of that. But I would argue that actually makes digital innovation more important than ever before, because the reality is we're going to have to lean on it more heavily to support people. And we've been really slow to do this in housing, haven't we? We've heard a lot about AI today. I think probably most of us are using things on a daily basis. It would have been mind-blowing a few years ago. You think about things like SatNav comes as standard in every car. You're probably all using ChatGPT to write reports. You might have applied for a job using ChatGPT, and yet we still stick the same kit into people's homes that was stuck in 30 years ago, despite everything else having moved on. So I think the digital switchover, which is obviously very rapidly approaching, really presents not only an opportunity but actually a burning platform for people to raise their ambition and innovation around tech. And this is something that we've embraced when developing the next generation of telecare procurement solutions. And telecare is something that we've done for well over 30 years. So we worked on our current technology-enabled lives framework over a 2-year period. And from the start of thinking about that framework, we knew we didn't want to just provide a route to getting the same old solutions. And we decided that we needed to look at the framework in a different way and to challenge any misconceptions about how the tech would be used and who would be using it. So for us, it was really important to use the Housing Lin's 10 TAPI principles, which are designed to act as a guide for the housing and care sectors. And that's helped us to think differently about how members can use the tech framework. So that brings me on to our practical solution and how the NHC procurement team can help to support you with changing digital infrastructure. Our technology-enabled lives framework is reflective of the evolving nature of tech. And what remains the same as the previous frameworks that we've done for the last 30 years is that it offers a reliable, compliant and industry standard route to market. And everything about that framework has been informed by our work with the TSA, and it gives you access to a national network of trusted suppliers. So we've heard about the interoperability matrix. Our team are using that matrix that was developed by TSA in all of their work supporting members, and I think that is a really important step in allowing you to embrace this innovation, but also mitigate risk. So I would encourage you to see the digital switchover as an opportunity, but also actually an obligation on you to approach the procurement of your telecare needs with ambition. And if you want to talk to us about it, we're on stand 12. So 3 points that I would like you to take away from this. Firstly, be ambitious. Raise up your aspirations around homes and continue to innovate and look to work with those who are leading the way. Secondly, I want us all to be thinking about the tech needs in our homes, not just now, but for the future. There is an increasing expectation of technology playing a major part in our lives, and people will expect new solutions to meet their changing needs. And then finally, we need to think about the needs of people, not just in their homes, but in our communities. And most of you will be working in anchor institutions, so you need to think more widely about the impact that you can have. So when we need it, I would like our homes and technology to offer us all the flexibility to continue to live our lives in the place we call home. And to quote our new strapline, let's start shaping tomorrow today. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Brilliant. So we're going to move on to a panel discussion now, and I've got a couple of questions, and I've got some in the app. So please feel free to pop any in the app if you've got any. We've also got a mic as well, so I might do a little bit of both. But just to get us started, just those that are the friends that are part of the CIRI groups, just to get a little bit of insight really as to what the processes look like for you in terms of coming on board, being part of the process, recruiting people into the team, and then working sort of collaboratively, collectively, and how you found the whole process really.
Shall I go first? Look, I think it was good. You know, we went through an interview process first, didn't we? Which was quite challenging, if I'm to be honest. But it was great because actually, when Alison interviewed us, you know, she wanted to make sure that the people that were getting involved were going to represent the industry as a whole, and to also to really understand. She wanted to see where I saw risks, and ultimately where I think that I could bring value. So it's a great interview process. On the back of it, as I mentioned before, I was very lucky to get the piece of work that I did, but. You know, from there, we had a number of people that put their name forward to come and help us within our groups. And I've got to say, I'm so fortunate with the people that have come in to come and help us. We've got a tremendous amount of work, but the skills that we have within our group are phenomenal, and we will achieve the outcomes that we've set out to do because of it, Chantal. So, look, the process is great. I think as the years go on, I see this as a continual evolving thing, certainly in the bit of work that I'm doing, and it would probably be good maybe to refresh, I think, what that group looks like, and that could be me as well, of course, in a year or 2 years' time. But there's you know, it wasn't just those people, there are many other people have put their name forward that equally could bring great value to what we're doing. So we're fortunate as an industry, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, I think what was key is take badge off when you enter the door, you know, and that's as work together. So collaboratively, I work for Taking Care, so being one of the largest B2C providers is what's the voice of the customer. Bring what your skill set, and obviously David has various skill sets. We work together really well as a team. Paul from a platform perspective. So it's really, we've got that key end to end, and without that, you're only getting one side of that story. But in terms of the process, yeah, it was great. And I think what's key, if you look at some of the people in the audience today who are here, who are impacting and really making a difference. So we've got some amazing skill sets from the membership, which we get to utilise, which we're missing from the original SRIC. So yeah, great partnership.
And I think for me, I've been in the industry for 30 years. Thank you, I know. Actually, I feel like we're making progress. I feel like these are big steps forward for the industry. I think interoperability is so important. We need to break away from proprietary solutions and have so that people can choose the best products, the best services, and mix and match them as they see fit. That's a great goal. But the interoperability matrix we've published to date is just the very first step of a long, continuous process. Much has been said here. And I'm really interested in where it can take us for the future, for preventative type services, proactive services. Where's the fit for that? And what I would love to do is involve more of the, how's it best to say it, the new starts, the innovative, smaller players who are coming into the industry, and involve them too, because they've got some really good ideas. So it's not just the big players and the companies that have been around for many years. I think we need some fresh insight into how this could be done in the future too. So we'll be encouraging people to join the membership of the interoperability group. So, thank you.
Brilliant. And it's just also, I think, important to note that in terms of the recruitment process, you know, it was a very open call out to the sector, and that is still in place. So we know that it's a continuous process of people being able to apply. I think it was before my time, but I think there was a CV and it was quite a robust process. Charlotte, I don't know if you want to unpick a little bit of what the process was like from a TSA perspective.
Yeah, of course. I think for us it was just really important that we got it right. I think, you know, we went from having a really strong governance structure with our SIGs, or our special interest groups that, you know, ran for several years, and they produced some fantastic outputs from that I suppose, that whole governance, but we just knew they'd run its course. So I think for TSA this was really exciting to have the CIRIG teamed with our SFAC, looking at, as you said, Chantal, earlier, that kind of the now, which is what we've all been talking about, the opportunities and challenges of today, teamed with what do we want to be or where do we want to be in 10 years' time, and that's what our SFAC's focusing on. So I think it was, really important that we got it right, and we really feel like we've, and I think it's, we've seen the other faces on the screen before. There's wider than just us on the stage that contribute to CIRIG, but it is also going to be evolving. What are our current challenges today aren't potentially going to be our current challenges in 12 months' time or 24 months' time. So as David's touched on, this isn't just we're going to produce an output and it ends. That recruitment process is always there, and, I think fresh meat really in terms of what we want to be bringing in. So certainly it's just evolving, and I think it'll just really continue moving forward.
Brilliant. So we've had a question via the app from our chair, thank you Roy, who said, are we working with organisations with similar cybersecurity risks but outside of our sector, thinking of best practice application? And by the way, thanks to you all for the great CIRIG work, it's brilliant.
Can take this one. Thank you for the question. Yes, absolutely. I think we only know what we know. And for that reason, if you look at some of the innovation in other industries, we're looking at EN 50518. For anyone who doesn't know that standard, off the top of their, it's a European standard around ARCs. It's not just ours, so we're looking at the alarm and other based, probably more security-based maturity, and taking best practice and guidance from that. But very good question, because if we only do what we've currently done, we'll get what we've always known. And for that reason, yes, we will be looking outside of industry. Thank you, though.
Charlotte?
I think just to add on to that as well, we've also been working with other stakeholders, so Scottish Digital Office in Tech Cymru, where they've done a lot of kind of pre-work around their cyber essentials work more broadly, so trying not to reinvent the wheel as well. If there's other learnings that we can bring into the CIRIG work, and I know we've got some kind of follow-on conversations, so I think there's a lot of learning outside of our sector we know that we need to bring in, but even within the sector that's just outside of TSA, we're wanting to bring that into the work as well, aren't we, Stuart?
Yeah, and it's an evolving landscape. What we knew 12 months ago is different to what we need to know now. You only look at AI, again, I have to say it's a buzzword, and if we don't, we'll get minus points. But for that reason, you're inputting into it. So the surveys we send out, those risks, you say we do. That's the whole point of this. That's the risk side to this, but it's the innovation side is where we can, again, grasp the metal and make improvements to the industry.
So when you see that risk survey come out later this year, please respond, because it's all feeding into this. And we'll come around with a question in a second, but I just wanted to bring you in, Tracy, as somebody with an organisation that absolutely overlaps and crosses paths with ours, but isn't squarely in the sort of tech-enabled care space. How have you found utilising the interoperability matrix and kind of feeding in the outputs of this group into your everyday in your organisation?
Well, my understanding of it is that we've found it really useful, and I think it's something that I'm looking over there at our head of procurement, but I know that they are using it on a sort of daily basis. So I think, as you said, easy for me to say, interoperability is really, really key. I think it's a really useful tool, and I think anything that kind of simplifies this process is really beneficial, isn't it? Because there's a lot of nervousness for, it's a big step, and we're asking people to be brave. So I think it is absolutely right that we'll have the tools there that make this as seamless as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the beauties of across the board with not just these, but the other CIRIG projects that are ongoing outside of this particular work stream, is it's grounding it back into reality of what people can actually use, a tangible guide, a tool, or whatever it might be. People can actually use these things, and I think that's the thing for me that stands out more about the CIRIG work streams. Have we got any questions? Come on, guys, don't leave me hanging. Roy, we'll just get a mic over to you.
Hi, and I'll just repeat, thanks to all of you, by the way, for working together on this. the value of SRIG, we should never underestimate the value of this, because there's a mindset shift, and I'm asking you whether you agree or not. The mind shift is you're competitive, but you're not competitive in the context of some of the things we've been talking about here. My view is that if you get these things right, you'll build the market. And you'll build the market among consumers, and you'll build the market among commissioners. And that mindset shift is crucial, and you guys are living it. And that's true, by the way, across into housing as well. We often fail to recognise that, and we keep things really tight, and I'm going to encourage you not to keep things really tight. I'm asking you to open out into a less directly competitive thing and be pre-competitive often in the way you think. Does that make any sense? Just respond and discuss. Thanks.
Yeah, so, Roy, when people join the industry, they never really leave the industry, and they don't because it means so much to them. And you take all the commercial stuff and you just put it aside. And you know, we got an opportunity here with the SRIG team to make a really significant difference to this industry. And to your point, we can make it and we can build it. You know, our role is to keep people, make them able to be independent out in the community. We want them to be happy. We want them to be healthy. And we want them to engage with technology to live a better life as well. So, you know, we've got a lot of work to do, but if we can get this right, then blooming hell, we're going to make a difference to many, many lives. So, you know, you're bob on with what you're saying, I guess. Yeah.
Just to come in on that, I mentioned the mayoral combined authority model and about devolution and how that helps us to do stuff at a more local level. And what we've seen within each of the mayoral combined authority areas is housing partnerships forming. So you get all the housing associations within that combined authority and the local authorities coming together and looking at how they can collaborate. And I think, as you say, it's always difficult to start because it's easier to do things on your own, isn't it, than to collaborate. But they're seeing the size of the prize of working together. And part of that is about being able to work with health and social care at a more local level. At a more local level, but at a scale where you can actually do something meaningful. So I think that really underpins all of this as well, potentially.
I think the key element as well is, you know, holistically, the outcome here is for better health outcomes. And we're all working towards that. It's a really strong purpose in this industry, which is why, you know, when we're working together in these collaborative ways, there isn't that competitive rivalry. We're all looking for the same outcome.
Yeah, and I quite like David's analogy of the tech industry being Hotel California. That goes down well. And being in it for 30 years, I have to say there is more collaboration now than I've ever seen in the industry. More suppliers willing to actually open up, talk to each other and reveal some of their plans for the future, which I think is so important. Growing the market together instead of fighting for market share of what's already there. And I think that's a huge benefit. Yeah.
You're only 25. How did he do that?
2 lifetimes in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlotte?
Well, I'm not going to give you that compliment, Paul, saying that calling that you're only 25. But I think
Thanks.
I think just on that, even though I think we've seen progress with partnerships and collaboration and interoperability across the sector, we are still not there. There is still a road ahead, you know, and I think it's still, so it is, I suppose, it's TSA's duty, but TSA can't do this alone, hence why we've developed, you know, SRIG in this way, because I think for us, it is our duty to drive this forward so we can do as a sector and, you know, what we want to do and, you know, all the things, I think, whether it's proactive, preventative, AI, anything that, you know, we want to be bringing in, but we have to, get the standards in place, get all those principles in place, and that's what we're building here in CIRIC, but it has to be done collaboratively. So I think we're just proving that, we're putting all those building blocks in place, but are we at the end product? Absolutely not. Certainly not on interoperability, but hopefully everyone can just see this is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. One of the things that I did want to just touch on as well that we haven't mentioned yet, and there was a few photographs in my slides at the beginning, but the inclusion of people with lived experience and just how critical that is. I just know it's been such a vital part of all of the different parts of the CIRIC workstream, and it's not something that we've touched on yet, and I just wondered if anybody wanted to speak on that specifically of how we've done that internally.
Yeah, I can touch on that. I think we were really challenged. So there's a gentleman on our CIRIC called Rich Amos, and he challenges us all the time. And I know we're still using the term interoperability in this setting today, but he said, what does that mean? And he was like, it's just not a term we should be using, especially for those when we're wanting to go, whether it's families and formal carers, those in receipt of services. If we talk about integration, interoperability, that to them it means nothing. But if we talk about choice and seamless, and you will have the ability to not be restricted with your technology, and your wraparound will be for you, I think that is what we're obviously trying to achieve here. But Rich just always keeps bringing us back in, because especially with these three, it can get quite technical sometimes, and we'll talk about all of the expertise that they bring out. So it's so important that we have Rich and others that are constantly just challenging the TSA and all of our work programs to be looking at it with the right lens, because it is easy in your day-to-day work to sometimes to not do that. So it's so important, it's so vital to this work program.
Yeah. And I know it was one of the things that we weaved in across all of them in terms of governance was those kind of core principles that all of the different work streams could adhere to around sort of accessibility. And if something is technical, then let's say at the beginning, this is going to be technical. Please don't feel that that there's something wrong if you can't understand this, because this document is made for somebody who has the brains like these three, who understands the technology. I think that was also a really important aspect of the work. I'll come to the audience if we've got any questions. You've now had lots of thinking time. Anybody? No? Okay, well, I'll dive straight in then again. Just in terms of what's next for across all of your different work, and you might need to just kind of put in the beginning there what it was, because people have digested a lot of information. But in terms of what your work stream is, and then what do you think is next?
I think from the interoperability, it's very much what I said about expanding it away from just devices through to monitoring centres. It needs to be much wider. Sensors that are used around the home, compatible with the device that's in the home that then transmits to the ARC, or not to the ARC. And I think a lot of the discussion here is in the future, is the ARC always involved in some preventative and proactive services of the future? We don't know. And I think that is one of those healthy debates that we need to have within the sector. And I think one of the next tangible steps is for us to do exactly what we just discussed, which was actually create a plain English version of some of the text that we talk about in interoperability. It's easier said than done. Sometimes the technical subjects cannot be turned into plain English, but I think we can do a lot better than we've done in the past with that, and trying to have an accompanying introduction or an appendix which translates the document into some really clear bullet points without the tech.
I think for myself, we mentioned earlier, it's an evolving landscape, so this, as far as I understand, this doesn't stop, whether it's me in this chair or someone else. It's just understanding what are the future risks. We talked about IoT a lot. We've talked about evolving AI. We need to understand those, risk assess around it, and provide guidance. So you understand it. If I can add entries to your cyber register that everyone can digest and cascade, that's what we should be doing. So you don't have to understand the tech, but someone can in that model. That would be my stance.
We've got a lot of work, and it'll continue, but it's going to continue to evolve. The group that I've got have tackled traditional assistive technology, if you will, typically telecare, monitoring, and so on. So number one, we've got to go wider than that. So our goal really is to look at a wider IoT to cause a frame, and how can we use these devices to enrich people's lives and to bring them into what we do as well, because there's a unity that can happen here, and we mustn't be afraid of it, and we need to take a front foot of it. So I see the work that we're doing here as a platform to bring that in, so people are aware, hey look, what's the opportunity, but also what are the risks that we need to be aware of, and then how do we communicate that effectively so people can commission in the best way that they possibly can. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's fair to say that we still don't know everything, and that risks are going to continue to present themselves. So as a group, we've got to be ready for that and not be afraid of it. And when something happens, it's okay. It's a learning day. Every day is a learning day. And then we'll put measures in place, and we'll learn and we'll share. So everybody benefits from something that's just happened. So it will continue to evolve. Yeah.
Amazing. That's what we like to hear. We've now had a couple of questions come in. So we've got Tanjinder who's asked, how does, and I'll bring this one to you, Charlotte, if that's okay, how does TSA plan on linking in with digitising social care in the formation of standards tech providers adhere to within social care? And for anybody that doesn't know and isn't aware of who that is, I'll just give a little bit of context. So the Digitising Social Care team is a joint NHS England DHSC programme that is supporting the adoption of different technologies across social care. So the question here, Charlotte, is how are we linking in with them in the formation of standards for care tech?
Yeah, I think obviously there's been a lot of talk about care technology standards over the course of today, and certainly after the obviously release of the stakeholder engagement on Thursday. And I think from a TSA focus, naturally out of all of this work, when we are looking at any outputs, it's kind of breaking it into three areas. So first is what needs to go out to be application or sector guidance. The second is what needs to then be training modules for our frontline workforce. And then the third is our standards. So as a first step, it's bringing that into our quality standards framework, which we've touched on quite a lot today already. But then that's certainly how that's then strengthened across any other forms of industry standards, and certainly then linking it back in with more wider care technology or digitising social care record standards, for example. So it is, I suppose it's a step by step. We go from a QSF standard first, and then what's the step after that? And I think obviously it is, as you know, from our perspective, that widening that scope, and that's going to be new to TSA in terms of what is some of these outputs that come out of the care technology standards. But it's certainly something that is, you know, it's a huge positive to our ears about how we can just continue to strengthen the QSF.
Absolutely, and I think that was complemented as well with a recent publication from Peter, the programme director, who talked about whitelisting standards and the different assurance processes. Brilliant. So we've got a few minutes left, but we've got a question from Tim. He says, apologies, I missed the start of the session, so if it's covered already, then I apologise. But how can we mandate compatibility between devices and platforms, so no longer any closed shops?
Shall I go for this one, guys?
Is that a big question to finish on?
Quite.
I mean, we've been trying to do it in the sector for many decades. In the end, I think it's only procurement that can enforce a set of requirements that buyers have to require and that suppliers have to meet. And if it was specified that you have to use interoperable protocols like the two standards I mentioned earlier, that's a start. And I see that more and more in tenders. I think we all do.
Yeah.
It's beginning to deploy through the whole procurement frameworks, but it's such a vital part of it. At the same time, you need to balance not to stifle innovation. So if it doesn't meet the standard, actually there may be a different way it's doing it, but it doesn't have the tick in the box of the standard. So we've got to be flexible enough to allow innovation to grow and to establish and not stifle it with the standards. And that's a really difficult balance, I would say.
Yeah.
Over to Stuart.
Thank you. But actually, it's a really good point. If we look at innovation currently, your smart speakers, your wearables, if we look at, from our industry, cancellations where people say, well, I've got now a smart device, why do I need an approved telecare standard? We have to showcase and highlight the resilience, the work we've discussed, and we need those standards so people have confidence in the reputation of this industry. So I think that's a differentiator, and we should be here to guide them down that path.
Absolutely.
Hey, look, we've got to get there, Tim. Hey, do you know, we've got a couple of years left, haven't we? We shouldn't be having conversations about devices talking to monitoring platforms. The piece of work that we're doing is really timely. We've got to get it done quick. For me, we've got to make sure that interoperability allows life safety devices to be able to get through to a monitoring centre and ultimately be there to save somebody's life. That's number one. But to Stuart's point, we can't stifle innovation either. So we've got to try and find that happy balance. But my Lord, we've got to turn the volume up on it really, really quickly. Definitely.
Fantastic. And with a minute left, I just want to take the last minute just to say thank you again to not only the three fantastic individuals here, but everybody else that's been part of those teams, because this is a voluntary role that these people undertake for TSA and for the wider sector. Their organisations are releasing them to enable them to put all of that time into delivering this for the sector, and I know that comes at a great cost. So thank you to you and to your organisations. Thank you, everybody.